And then I'm playing catch with my son in the front yard, and I trained my German Shepherd so that when my son threw a bad ball, I wouldn't even go get it. I was so lazy, so that I would train the Shepherd to go get it for me. And I asked him one day, "Hey Jack, what do you want to be when you get big?" And he's like, "I want to be an athlete." And I was like, I said the same thing to my dad, and I'm looking at myself, and I'm like, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm gonna teach my
Mm.
kid how to be unhealthy. I'm gonna teach my kid how to be fat, like my dad was and he got sick at 58 and died at 62. Like, he never even saw any of this. And I'm walking up the stairs, and I'm like, my calling is to do a number of things. And one is to manage and build these kids to be better than me mentally, physically, spiritually. And I'm not doing that.
What's going on, Samson Strength Coach Collective listeners? On today's episode, we have Jim Beebe. He's owner of Unbreakable Athletics and then has an educational company as well, Athlete Builder. You get into quite a lot of different endeavors, so I'm very excited to speak with you today, Jim.
Connor, man, thanks for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to it. I'm usually on the other end, so this is great for me. I just sit back and answer questions. I'm excited.
It's always the best, right? When you when you host a different podcast and you get to be the guest and you don't have to, spend the whole time analyzing, okay, what's my next question going to be? How am I going to, make sure I can keep this conversation going? It's much easier to be the guest side.
Sure, and I can also give answers that are curveballs that kind of throw the host off. So
Awesome.
that just makes it fun for me then.
Excellent. All right, good. So you're just going to make me sweat for the next 45 minutes. I love it.
I think you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Okay, well, let's just start off with your background. Can you tell me about your full background and then what's brought you to your current endeavors?
Wow, I don't want to take you back all the way, but I'm from Ohio, but went to Purdue for engineering and quickly went to business and finance and did that undergraduate MBA and lived the finance life for a good 15 years. JP Morgan, white collar, crime, even high net worth investments. And I'm 300 pounds and I can't walk up the stairs without breathing heavy. I can't run a mile, can't bench or squat my body weight. Like I'm fat. And I remember when I was younger, I wanted to be an athlete and I did some athletic things, but the parents weren't really like athletes that didn't really learn much there. They loved me and all, and they tried to help, but not much there. And I went to a really competitive high school. They won 50 titles in the last 25 years. No kidding. And I'm like, so after my freshman year, I'm not really doing anything. And I was learning some sports on my own and playing, but that kind of just ended. I was good at math and ended up in finance. And then I'm playing catch with my son in the front yard, and I trained my German Shepherd so that when my son threw a bad ball, I wouldn't even go get it. I was so lazy, so that I would train the Shepherd to go get it for me. And I asked him one day, "Hey Jack, what do you want to be when you get big?" And he's like, "I want to be an athlete." And I was like, I said the same thing to my dad, and I'm looking at myself, and I'm like, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm gonna teach my kid how to be unhealthy. I'm gonna teach my kid how to be fat, like my dad was and he got sick at 58 and died at 62. Like, he never even saw any of this. And I'm walking up the stairs, and I'm like, my calling is to do a number of things. And one is to manage and build these kids to be better than me mentally, physically, spiritually. And I'm not doing that. So then I'm like, I'm going to be healthier. And it was toe in the water. I'm going to do some P90X and I'm going to go for a 5K run and start building up for that. And then I'll do like a Spartan race. And then I did some group training downtown in Indianapolis, and then came across CrossFit as I kept doing more and more challenging athletic things. And I'm like, all right, seems like a reasonable business model. I know how to do high finance. I don't know how to do small businesses, but I can dust this book off from MBA school on how to write a business plan, which I saved. And I just used that book and wrote a business plan. And I'm like, you know what? I am going to stop working in the financial world, and I'm going to open a CrossFit gym. And then either all in or not at all, because you're not going to really do really well if you got two different businesses. And I have two different businesses right now, so that's kind of funny. And so at my late 30s, 37, I started putting everything together, and I went through some certifications, and I started coaching people in my garage, and then kept learning year after year. And then at 38, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sign a lease, and I'm going to open a facility. and I rented out a space, 10,000 square feet, which is huge. You don't need that much space, but it was cheap, and it's in Plainfield on the west side of Indianapolis, and it was super cheap, relatively. I'm like, all right, this is it. And at age 38, I started that and added sports performance. At age 39, brought in some coaches for that, and then kept adding educational certifications. Been running the gym. We just passed 12 years in March. So powerlifting, strongman, nutrition, CrossFit, or functional fitness, whatever, and then sports performance for kids, and that's what the gym has evolved to. And so it was a total epiphany and a change of direction for me, and I went completely all in on it, and here we are today.
Wow. And so it was your kids truly who were the ones who made you want to make the change.
Yeah, because I always wanted to do it when I was younger.
Hmm.
I wanted to play sports. I always wanted to play sports, but I didn't really play baseball till I was 12. By that point, it's kind of over. And since I got cut, I went to an all boy Jesuit high school. Like I wasn't kidding when they said they won 50 titles in the last 25 years.
Yeah.
Like they really have. Like I want to say 6 soccer ones in a row, and a dozen football, a dozen rugby, whatever.
Wow.
Anyways, so I'm like, there's nothing for me to play. I'm 15 years old. I'm like, that's over. So I went to the local gym or a racquetball club, and I was all right. I'll start playing racquetball at this place, and started to play like around the state in some tournaments. And it's a club sport at Purdue, so I was on their club team for while I was there, and then that was about it, and kept going to the fraternity parties and drinking. And the next thing you know, I'm really good at finance and investments, and I'm really out of shape and unhealthy.
Mm.
And then you start living that finance life where you're taking clients out, taking prospects out, and it's these expensive dinners and drinks before and afterwards. Like calorie content is 1,500, 2,000 calories at a pop, and it's like, hey, this isn't it. This is not it. And that world was going fine. Like we're making money. I'm making clients money, but I'm just riding on the inside, and I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. And so this has been the deal ever since I made that decision.
I mean, I think that's just incredible too, because like you said, like people always have these kind of hopes that they always wanted to do something, right? Like when
Yeah.
I remember when I ran a marathon, everybody's like, "Oh, I've always wanted to do that." And I'm like, "You can,
Right.
like it's not this big deal. You can go out there and do it." Do you feel like making that switch ultimately got you what you wanted out of it, which is setting a good example for your kids from a health and athletic standpoint?
Yeah. The want to is nice. The need to is closer, but it's not until someone says I must do this that it happens. Right. There's no chance with it. I just want to. I want to do a lot of things. Right. I want to do a lot of things. Doesn't really matter until you say I must do this. And so yeah, number one was to honor and glorify God. So I want to do that. I want to use my talents to the best of my abilities and do that. And then number two was teach my family and friends this is how you build yourself mentally and physically. That was absolutely number two. And then number three was, can you make a living doing that? Saying, so I have. I would like to make more of an impact. I would like to make more of a living, if you will. And if I make more money, then I can make more donations and do more things and go hiking more places. But overall, it's impact. It's like those kids that want to play and they can't, there's still a chance you can do those things. There's a do it yourself model, which is very, very hard, but there's a blueprint to do things. And we came up with that. And so it's those folks that want to do things. But here's the real thing, like whether you're an adult or a kid, the real PR that I look for with all of them is that mental PR where they're no longer afraid. They're no longer afraid to walk into the gym. They're no longer afraid to put this big heavy back squat on your back. They're no longer afraid of that conversation with their spouse or their coworker. And it's those fears that just ruin the world, and they won't do things or won't try things or they won't even be honest. They'll just say I'll be there and then I'll ghost you because they're afraid of letting you down, right? And so when you get rid of that fear and you see what these people can really do with their lives, then it's like, all right, I win, right? That's the real juice for me. If I had to come right down to it from a psychological basis, that's really it. If I can get people to do that, then I'm just thrilled.
And how do you see that happen? Is it like a slow creep, or
That
are there moments where your clients can say, I'm finally not afraid?
you can tell. You can tell when people walk into the gym, they're afraid, man, what we got today? Are you trying to kill me? right? You trying to kill me? Versus walking in, all right, what we got today? All right, good. I'm hoping for this. Like I'm ready to, like they're already thinking in their head, how do I attack? Versus can I? And whether you want to believe in some get rich quick scheme or get fit quick scheme, none of that is real. It's all the James Clear atomic habits approach of building small wins. The next thing you have is a breakthrough. People don't get outside their comfort zone and go from I'm gonna just do a mile, then I'm gonna do 26 miles. I might do 2 miles, unless something cathartic happens. You're drunk and you hit someone and kill somebody. All right, I'm no longer drinking. Right? You have to have that bottom out moment for you to make a really significant change. When your kid says, I want to be an athlete, and you can't walk up the stairs, and you're like, I'm a loser father leading my kids this way, and you have this bottom out moment. If you don't have that, then everything else is incremental change. So, how do I get someone a little bit mentally tougher? You do something that's a little scary, and they get comfortable with that. Then something a little scarier than that, and they're getting comfortable with that. You draw parallels, and you say, "Hey, we're gonna do something a little bit scary today," and you get them comfortable with that, and they do it. Confidence only comes from the reps. So you squatted 135. All right, I'm confident with that. Can you squat 145? Sure. Am I going to put 495 in the back? No. Same thing when you're coaching. The coach only has confidence when he sees you in your reps. Man, this guy's 80% free throw shooter because you're in the basketball world. Oh, this guy's 80% free throw shooter. You're definitely going to be in the game at the end when there's fouling going on. So, how do people handle and build fears? You have to do uncomfortable things incrementally, and it's best to do them in different areas of your life, not just physical things, conversation things, jumping off a cliff things. There's a process to everything. Nothing is really that new. There's no real secrets. There's just some process to everything, and you have to incrementally do it.
Hmm. And how does that process look for your general clients? So people in their 40s getting into fitness, or people with your story who are trying to, change their lives essentially, versus athletes who are younger and kind of have a more common and direct goal of maybe playing Division I sports or being a professional athlete.
Sure. So that's the bread and butter of most gyms, the mom bods and dad bods, right? The soccer moms and dads. They're busy all the time. They're running their kids around. They don't have much time, so they come in and they're overweight. And it's a similar deal. Even before they start doing group training with us, they're going to do one-on-ones with a coach just so they understand the basics of the movement, just the terminology. So when we say things, they don't feel stupid, right? And when they come in, we point out that, hey, you're going to be squatting with the class, and you're going to have great athletes and terrible ones, young and old, thin and fat, but we're all squatting together as a team. You tell them over and over again that no one's really judging you, right? They don't believe you. They have to see it themselves. They have to experience it. They'll believe you some. They develop some trust, right? Not much, but they have to actually go through it. So, like anything else, you got to be great with the bar before you're great with a ton of weight. You got to be great with your body weight before you're great with a ton of weight. And the last thing we want is injury. Injuries do happen, even if you're doing things perfectly, they do happen. But if we do have them moving correctly and we're relentless on being disciplined at it, we got a good shot. And then so once they get comfortable with that, we put them in the back of the class so they can watch the better ones in front of them. And we'll put them up on Front Street where they could be, exposed. There aren't mirrors in the gym or people looking around, and we make sure we're having a good time, right? So make a joke. That's the hard part about coaching. You got to be getting them better, cueing them, being relentless, and then you got to be funny and entertaining, so keep their minds off the pain that's about to come, right? So I have a bunch of bad jokes that no one laughs at, but I keep saying them, and so it's just incrementally getting people more and more comfortable with you, and you gotta when you tell them to do things, you gotta be right. If they're squatting 135 and we're maxing out, and their number's probably 205, and you say, hey, man, we're going to 155 next, and their eyes get kind of big. I say, hey, man, I'm not going to put any weight on you that I know you don't have, as long as you do all our progressions. And even if you don't have it, we'll be spotting you here along the way. All right. So you got to keep building that up, and then you got to be right. You got to be right a ton of times. You might be wrong every once in a while, but make sure you put them in a position to win and make sure they do that. And then you remind them, hey, we did this before and we won last time. Same process here. Let's go.
Mm. Yeah, it's funny because I remember one of the first lessons I had to learn as an intern was putting in putting people in a position to win, right? Because we had a young tight end, and that was who I was working with at the time, was the tight end group, and he was overhead pressing 135 for 5 reps, no problem, right? And I just didn't understand that we could not make the same jumps for an upper body lift, especially shoulder press, that we could for a squat, right? So he said, how about we go 185 next, because that moved really good. And I was like, yeah, 185 is going to be so easy. And then immediately slapped on 185 and couldn't even get it above his nose, right? And he was demoralized for the rest of the day. And so that was one of my first lessons in, okay, I cannot basically give these people as the expert, even though I'm an intern, I have no clue what I'm saying, right? At that time, I'm seen as the expert by the tight end. I cannot give them advice that will not help them be successful. There's certainly times to push people, but there's also times where you're just completely wrong and you're really not helping them get wins.
At that point, you just say, hey, man, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was wrong. And so many people won't. And that further reduces the level of trust. Because they're like, well, that guy was wrong last time. And then he dug in his heels, or he covered it up, or he made an excuse. And little kids see right through that, let alone adults. So now you put the wrong weight on me and you didn't own it. So now I really don't think much of you. Right. So you can make a mistake. That's okay. That's life. Right. But you got to own it next and say, man, I messed up here. You know what I did? I'll be honest. I equated that to lower body, where you can make bigger jumps in the percentages like that. And a shoulder press, much smaller muscle group, just not the same thing. And that's where I got that. That's a little silly. That's on me. That's my bad. We'll know better next time. And so we'll make sure so that I put you in a position for success. Don't get in your head about that like you did something wrong. That's all on me. So now you take the pressure off the athlete. It's now on you as a coach, where it should be. And then he believes you a little bit more because you owned your mistake. Once you start hiding behind that and come up with excuses, now you're even worse. Right?
Do you think people get scared to own it as a confidence or lack of experience? Where do you think that comes from?
That comes from, you were worried about being abandoned by your parents when you're a tiny little baby. Right? If I make a mistake, you're not going to like me. You're going to think less of me. We won't be friends. You'll go away. If I make a mistake, you're going to dump me. If I make a mistake, you won't trust me as your coach. Right? You will abandon me. So everyone's afraid that I got to be perfect or look perfect, whether you're on social media looking perfect, right? Or if they're not going to think I'm perfect, then they're not going to like me as much. And if I don't like me and if I could end up alone, oh my God, my life is over because I'm alone for a moment. And most people are like that. It's really, really sad. And I'm not saying I'm impervious to it. I felt that before. And I've learned enough lessons where that's absolutely ridiculous and silly, right? So when you worry about being alone, you're not going to be alone. And if you are, who cares? Because you still got God on your side. So people are worried about owning it. And all it does, and the reality is that it just builds more trust when you do. And when people don't and they're fake, there's a better chance people aren't going to believe in you. Then you want to talk about being alone when no one respects you and they don't like you. Goodbye. Start over.
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm going through that process right now with the wedding. We were talking about this right before the show, right? I get married in 19 days now.
Congratulations.
And, thank you. Very excited. I got some great advice pre-show as well, too, which I appreciate greatly. But there's two of my really good friends who I know it's a haul for them to get there. And I understand that. And I've told them a million times, if you can't make it, I'm not going to be upset whatsoever. But now, as it's crunch time, and I told them, hey, I need to know by this Thursday because our vendors need to know whatever, they are not answering my texts, and they're not saying anything back. And it's making me way more upset because they're not answering me versus if they just said, hey, man, we would love to be there. Unfortunately, can't make it. And so it's 100% understandable where you're coming from. Like if you make a mistake, that trust, I think it's almost like an opportunity. Now, I would never say to directly make mistakes just to say, oh, I own that. And now we have more trust, right? But when those opportunities come naturally, I think it enhances the trust even more.
It does. And so those folks, you have to like almost give them another out and say, hey, I'm going to assume you're not going to be here because I haven't heard from you guys.
Yep.
I'm not saying you're afraid to let me know. I'm sure you guys are busy so they can save face, right? The truth is they don't want to let you down and they're being pussies about it.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, you want to make sure they can save face. But, hey, I'm going to assume you guys can't be there because we need to move forward. It's totally okay. Like I said before, I love you guys to death. Not going to hurt my feelings. Just got to make things happen. So, I'll talk to you guys down the road as soon as you guys are free and I'm free. Know our feelings. Love you guys together, and we'll see you next time.
That's perfect. I'm stealing that right after this show. I'll be texting them that same one. There we go.
You want to call people when you can. FaceTime is even better. Then call. then voicemail, then text. Like text, like the lowest form of communication, right? Avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually a very fair point. I do when when I have players away for the summer, I always FaceTime them. That's the first one because they almost always feel like they have to pick up, and then it cracks me up because they'll text me saying, "Hey, I was at workouts at 8 a.m. this morning," and I'll FaceTime it at 11, and they're still in bed.
Right.
So it's a good little exposure piece too.
Right.
Yep. Well, when you first started out, you mentioned, okay, I started with P90X and then eventually got into CrossFit and got exposed to all these different types of lifting. What drew you to each type? And then what have you learned from having such extensive background in all of these different training methods?
Well, I remember I'm doing more and more CrossFit things. So I'm lifting, and then there's the gymnastics piece. And those that don't know, it's basically whatever someone says. It's any kind of any kind of training is CrossFit. They can make anything up, and then that's kind of one of the points is that it's very very random. However, something that's trends quite a bit with CrossFit was weightlifting, so snatch and clean and jerk. And I'm like, I'm not very good at this. I'm gonna go to a specialist on snatch and clean and jerk for a year for some 90-minute sessions a couple times a week. Says if I want to coach it, I need to learn all these things because you always want to keep learning so you can do better. And I walk in there, and I'm talking to him. I said, "Hey, why is weightlifting the best way to train?" And he had his philosophies. I'm like, okay. And then I went to a powerlifting store. I go, "Hey, why is powerlifting the best way to train?" And whatever people are doing is pretty interwoven with their identity, and they're going to say, "Hey, this is best," right? And I'm like, "No, there's got to be different ways. Why don't I learn a bunch of different ways, and then I can mix and match and incorporate it?" And since the majority of my gym was CrossFit training, it incorporates powerlifting, weightlifting, gymnastics, running, jumping, plyometrics. And if I'm pretty good at all those things, then I'm going to be a better coach. So I better start learning a whole bunch of things that's so broad. Like powerlifting's a lot more narrow, a lot simpler in that respect. And then whether I was looking at like Westside Barbell's approach to building strength or CrossFit's approach or the basic standards in a text, they'll mostly say that there's this pyramid to building someone. They'll say, hey, you got to be in shape. There's your GPP, your general physical preparedness, and then it's like gymnastics movements, meaning can you move your body weight well? Then it goes strength next up the pyramid, and then power and speed typically, and then actually playing your sport. I'm like, so if you're in shape, the next main builder really is strength, right? So that's really it. So between being in shape and strength, that's like 65, 70% of the pyramid. Well, if I can get really great there, then I move the needle almost all the way on those two pieces alone. So I focus on those a lot because they had a much higher return on investment finance term, right? And then from there, you ever notice those guys that walk in that are really super strong, how easy it is to get them to be fast because they have so much force they can exert into the ground or against an object. I'm like, well, shoot, once you're super strong, like if you're a 500 squatter and deadlifter, it's going to be pretty easy to jump or power clean 100 pounds, right? When you see Brian Shaw reverse curl 335, well, sure, he's an 1,100-pound deadlifter. It's only a third. So if you take a third of your overall deadlift, can you power clean that? Yeah. So I'm like, great. So if I can get people in shape and then really strong, then the power and the speed's gonna come pretty easily. Also, most people are afraid of doing the strong things, the 1 rep maxes, the 3 rep maxes. And if one of my main goals is to get people more resilient and have them handle fears, well, it's a pretty easy way to address that with the 1 rep max back squat and things like that. So I wanted that diversity in my learning so I can make an impact with the athletes with a high ROI. Then what I come to believe is it really does work. If you're being strong, hides a lot of sins in the rest of your training. And from there, it's easy for me to build things. So let's do that. And that's how I developed that approach.
And so you started off with general clients, right? General population.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then you transitioned and actually got some more coaches in for athletes. How
Hmm.
did you kind of decide, okay, let's open it up to athletic training aspect of it too?
The coach, one of my members, her daughter was training at this other gym, and the gym was having problems, and the coach was being let go. And I was like, I don't know anything about training kids and making them fast and things like that. I know how to make people well rounded. And he was looking for a place, so he came to me, and I brought him on. I'm like, he's way smarter than I was in that area. I'm like, great, you can be really smart at this, and I can learn along the way, and it expands our service. Outstanding. Now, if you're running a gym, it's a pretty hard gig, right? It's very competitive, and it's not considered a necessity for a lot of folks, whether you're being healthy or training kids, right? So it's really challenging. So most people that run gyms have other jobs, and he did too. And then his other job just went way better, and then he ended up leaving the industry. But I learned enough things along the way, added some more knowledge, and went to Zach Avenesh's certifications and things like that. And so I'm like, you know what? I like training kids as well. Now, so that comes back to my identity piece of wanting to play high school sports or then play in college, so that when that kid wins, then I win, right? So only 7% play in college, but like 25% of my kids do, right? That come to the gym because one, they want to, and two, we work at it. So now my own, remember, most people are selfish, I'm included. So now I derive joy from getting that kid better. I derive just the same amount of joy getting that mom or dad to lose 30 pounds, develop, change their eating habits. So now they're setting an example for their kids. The joy is there just as much. The non-joy is actually running the gym with all those business components. The actual coaching part's the fun part. The business part is mostly crap.
I'm sure. I mean, that is one of the things as a strength coach that I do really appreciate. There's always, with every job, there's, kind of there's a detriments, there's like pros and cons, but not having to actually worry about the business side of things as a collegiate strength and conditioning coach is pretty fun sometimes.
I imagine you have clients every year, don't you?
Yeah, and they're guaranteed, and we actually have a very specific number of clients, and they
That's
can never
right.
go over that number, and we always have that exact number too. So I
Pretty
always know
nice.
exactly what I'm dealing with.
So that brings in enough revenue to keep you well fed.
Exactly.
That's great.
Well, one of the things that you speak about, and you can obviously tell just from speaking with you, is that you love to learn and you continue to read and basically try to learn from other people as well.
Mhm.
Where does that hunger come from? Because I think a lot of people will say that they love to learn. A lot of people will say that, almost like you said, when or we mentioned the marathon example, like I've always wanted to run a marathon, or they'll post an Instagram story of one book and they'll be like, look, I'm reading and I'm getting better. But it's an everyday kind of habit to actually do those things and actually get something out of that learning process. Where does that drive come from you?
Wasn't from when I was a kid. I only liked math then. Um, when you understand that if you want to build anything, it's just incremental, and if that you really believe that, whether you want to build some nutrition habits or your back squat or get smarter at math and algebra and geometry, trig and algebra 2, calculus, things like that, and it's incremental. Once you know that to be true and you want to get better, like you, if I don't continue learning, then there's a breakdown, right? So we have 6 core values. One of them is Kaizen, which means looking for constant improvement, 1% better in everything. And if that's one of my core values, and you understand it's incremental, like that's a rule. If I have these rules, right, that are dictated by nature, like gravity, and if you want to adhere to your own core value, and that's a rule, well, you understand that that's the way it has to be, then you must keep going. You must keep learning. Otherwise, you're breaking your own rules. So if you're saying, "Hey, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to do these things well," and you're breaking these laws of nature, you're not going to do those things well. You're going to get beat. There's no way around it. And if the only chances to win are to follow these rules, then you got to keep going. So you listen to podcasts, you go to summits, you talk to other folks. Running your own podcast, like I run my own podcast, that's 1 to 2 hours of continuing education, like every week. Talk
Oh yeah.
about, so even if you're not reading a thing, like you're going to pick up something in every hour. At least I try to, right? And I'm sure you do too. So then you are now that much better all the time. So if you're constantly pumping that in, you're going to win. You're going to
Mhm.
win. You're going to win.
Yeah, I love the podcast because it does have to get published every Friday. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no excuses I can make. I have to do at least this 1 hour of continuing education. But I truly appreciate what you're saying about the incremental aspect, because one area that I can fail in is once we're done with season, we'll basically wrap up in May, right around this time frame, and then until July, my guys are all off campus, and I've got endless time. And so it's like, okay, this is the summer of improvement. So I made this book list that's 15 books long, and most of them are textbooks. And I'm going to read every single one. And then every year I've done that, I end up reading one or two. And
Hmm.
then I ultimately kind of get burnt out on the list because it looks so insurmountable to me instead of incremental. So I appreciate that you say that, because it is much easier to start with one step or start with 1 mile than starting with 26.
So you got to set a process goal as opposed to the tangible goal.
Yeah.
I'm going to run 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Friday's going to be my long run. I'm going to run for 30 minutes, blah, blah, blah. That's a process goal, right? I'm going to read at this time these days, right? Whether it's 15 books or one book, right? The last thing I want people to do is read my book, say, hey, man, that was pretty sweet. And then they put it down and never use it.
Mm.
If you go through Atomic Habits, like I tell people, read one chapter a day and apply it. And if people just keep reading and reading, if you're procrastinating from actually doing something, that's bad, right? You can use that as an excuse where you're like not entertaining yourself, but you're not doing the hard things. So if you learn something from one book and that's all you need to make a whole bunch of improvements to move forward, then don't read the other 14. Make those improvements. Like that's the point, right?
Mm.
If you just got smarter and didn't do anything, then I would think you're actually stupider because, man, I got you smarter and then you're still not doing it. Like, at least now you're aware.
Mm.
Before you were unaware and weren't doing the things. Now you are aware and still not doing the things. No, so that the point is to do. So start with a book.
Yeah, I think deep work was the one for me that was ultimately made me really make a lot of changes, and actually scheduling my deep work.
I've heard that title and I have not bought that and read that book yet. I need to write that down.
There's no way. I found from the man who owns an actual library. I found a book you hadn't read yet. This is
Oh,
incredible.
shoot. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it's a very tiny library on a comparative basis. But yes. Yeah, the point is to do the work.
Yes, absolutely. And again, it can only be more beneficial for you. And that's kind of what I tell a lot of people who first start out reading all these textbooks, especially interns and GAs. They almost come to me and they're like, well, I needed to read triphasic. So as soon as I got triphasic done, I needed to go to 531. And then after that, I need to go to starting strength and do all these things. And it's just like, did you actually spend time? Like, did you run through a triphasic, actual cycle yourself? Did you do it with any of your athletes? Because you don't know triphasic just because you read the book. You actually have to go out and do the actual program and see if it actually helps you or not.
That's true. That's true. And then the idea of like, I've had like Tom Barry from West Side, and then Shane Sweat is one of his disciples whose wife was Laura Sweat,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes, the point is to learn these things and then add your own take on it. The point is to evolve it. We grow taller by standing on the shoulders of giants, they say, right? So, yeah, Cal Dietz knows a ton of stuff, but that book is a bit dated from what he knows. Like he knows more than what he knew when he wrote that. And if you read that and you apply those things, well, there's going to be at some point when you have enough experience and knowledge, you're going to be driving along in the car and you'd be thinking about triphasic and you're like, you know what? I think with these isometrics, I should try this different little thing. And then you do it and you keep notes. That way you have your own little knowledge library growing and you're like, hey, this was different and this is the outcome. Like that's to your point. Yeah, that's how you evolve things. There's a process for that.
And it's more fun
It
too
is.
when you get to have your own set ways. It's a lot more fun.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. Well, we spent so much time talking about books. Let's talk about your book. Can you break it down for me? What are the contents and how could it be beneficial for those listening?
Sure. Here's a picture, right?
Excellent.
There's the head and there's the body for the athlete. The head has three things. The body has three things. So if I'm looking at you, Connor, and you are a basketball guy, there's your mindset, how you deal with things, your identity, your core values. Can I improve you there? Yeah. Now, let's say you're a driven person. You're disciplined. You're doing all the right things. There's still the knowledge of how to play basketball. Difference between zone and man-to-man defenses, right? Dribbling with your left or right hand, the other opponent. So there's the knowledge, still a component of being a better athlete. You're driven, your knowledge, you know a lot of things, but what comes out of your mouth dealing with teammates, that's another thing that you could be, a strength or a weakness. So that's how it comes down to improve your head as an athlete. Can I improve you in all three of those areas? For sure. Are all three critical? Absolutely. Now, at the lower level, not so much. You can get by with probably one. But at the highest level of you, there's going to be some limiting factor in all three of those phases. And we're constantly trying to bring that up. Physically, it's pretty straightforward. What goes in your body is how you eat. Then there's how do you train. Then there's how do you recover. Same deal. So what I do is I take an old, very simple, basic business school tool, a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats, and I walk your mindset through that. What are the strengths of your mindset, right? We'll go through that, identify those things. What's your weaknesses? The best strength that you have in your mindset, that's your competitive advantage. That's a business tool, a business model thing, right? So Walmart's competitive advantage is that they have everything and it's cheap, right? In your mindset, you have your weaknesses too. Whatever your biggest weakness is, that's your limiting factor. That's what's holding you back. That's how you get beat. Got to bring that up so you quit getting beat. You keep pushing your competitive advantage, so that's how you win. What kind of opportunities do you have? Those are things you're working on. The big threat with your mindset, that's the one thing that you're not necessarily going to get beat. If you don't fix this one thing on your mindset, you probably get hurt, get injured, you get fired. My mindset is that I just know everything. I'm going to walk around like that and I can't learn anything and I'm working in the financial world and I can't work with clients because I'm so abrasive. I'm going to lose my job, right? I'm not just losing money. I'm losing my job. That's a real threat. We go through this a little analysis for your mindset, and then it comes down to what do you do? What's our trial and error? What are we working on? And you say, you know what, I'm really afraid of doing hard things. And when it comes down to hard things, I'm gonna shy away. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start with 30 seconds and work up to 2.5 minutes of cold showers. So you're used to doing hard things every day. I'm gonna teach you how to do it, show you the progression, we're gonna breathe through it. And then so every day you can do something that's a little hard and you can get used to it. And after a while, you're not gonna care. We want to find some other hard things to do. So you're constantly seeking hard things, and we're going to improve your mindset that way. So we're going to write down your habits. We're going to track your habits. I came up with, I use a planner and a journal for my business. So I'm like, this has to be the exact same approach, tracking habits and improving habits because we improve what we measure. I'm going to track things and see how it is. And at the end of the week or at the end of 30 days or 90 days, am I more comfortable doing some hard things? Cool. Let's sign up for an event. Let's do something else, right? So there's always that next evolution of assessing your mindset and you're working on it. You track it in your planner and you keep evolving. Do the same thing with the knowledge of your sport, same thing with being a better teammate, and then your training, your nutrition, and your recovery. So the book is for the do-it-yourselfer. The planner is how you hold yourself accountable and how you do it. But still, it's easier when you got like a Connor coaching you, right? Hey, athletes, here's the things we're going to work on. I have my philosophies. Here's the things I want you to do. Here's how I want you to track these things. You're going to bring your planners with you every Tuesday practice. We're going to spend 20 minutes. We're going to go over our things, see what's working, what's not working, and constantly evolve. We're looking for weaknesses. We're looking for failures. We're hunting those things. We want to be in that environment where that's cool. You shouldn't be ashamed of making mistakes. We want the mistakes so we can correct them faster. We want fast mistakes so we can correct them. Here's how we identify them. Here's how I'm going to work with all my basketball players to do that so we can evolve you guys faster than everybody else. And that's going to show up on the court and we're going to win.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying too about having somebody there to actually hold you accountable. I actually hired a personal trainer myself as a strength coach, and everybody loses their minds and like there's like, what are you talking about? There's no like you know everything about it. And I'm like, first of all, no, I do not, not even close. And then second of all, like I'm lazy at my heart and who I am as a person is I'm lazy. And it was so nice to actually go through his analysis because there was a full testing, protocol. And they were things that, if I maybe looked at it separately or if I looked at it, as somebody said, hey, look at this analysis, tell me what you think. I would say, I wouldn't do this, this, or this, because I don't think that's very important. Right. But then all the things that I would have picked out that I didn't think were very important were all things that I was very bad at in the testing analysis. And so obviously I was good at the stuff that I thought was important because that's what I've done on my own time. So
Sure.
it's been a very good process for me because having to get analyzed and then having to actually show up and do those things every day has, I feel like, really kind of revolutionized my own training.
It's true. If you follow Westside, they want those people in the gym, making them so great so everyone else is getting better that way, right?
Mm.
So if you can get your teammates around you way better than you, you're going to improve. That accountability piece for me, I'm gonna back squat, push sled, swing kettlebells, and pick up Atlas stones, and then maybe hold a minute plank. Like I'm gonna do those things. I like pressing too, so overhead press, log press, maybe and bench. Am I gonna do any back work? Nah. Well, I like some of it, but I'm just doing the things I like. Mobility work, gone. Right? Flexibility, gone. extra deep tissue work, not until I'm injured, not until I'm in pain do I go and get any of that work done. No, that you need an ally. We talk about that in the book. You don't need the friends. The friends are the ones that, hey man, let's not go work out. Let's go grab a beer. Right? That's the friend. I got plenty of friends. But you find some ally or someone, maybe a coach that's mentoring you or actually coaching you, and then an ally that goes elbow to elbow, deep into that pit with you. That's man, tons of value there. Hold on to that person forever. That person needs to be at the wedding, right? There's a ton of value there.
Yeah. Oh no, trust me. He's actually one of my groomsmen.
Right,
So he's certainly there because he changed my life.
right, right. Yeah, you got to have that, and then that you build that trust, and it's a teammate component. You and him. Right now, he's leading you, coaching you. You're the athlete, right? So everyone's either in that leadership role or that teammate role or that support role.
Hmm. And so, what you mentioned all these important things, which is the mental aspect of training, and then you also mentioned helping people with their fear and
Mm.
overcoming fears. But that doesn't just translate just to lifting; it translates to everything outside of the weight room, whether they're a financial planner, whether they or whether they're a coach or an athlete themselves. Like, when did it kind of dawn on you when you started coaching that it should be a holistic approach to training versus just the weights?
That's a good question. So one, you start realizing that you can't outwork a bad diet, and in the strongman world, which is where I used to live, like I would lift for a couple hours a day, but if I didn't get 4,500 to 5,000 calories, right? Or if you don't have the knowledge that your hormones are out of whack, your testosterone is out of whack, or your sleep and your stress is out of whack, you're like, man, I'm working really hard here. I'm pushing these sets almost to failure every time. Why am I not making any gains? You're like, shoot, there's other things, right? And then you start realizing that all these things matter, more so at the higher level. In addition, I'm I'm not trying to be the number one nutrition person. I'm not trying to be the number one speed person or the lifting person. There's so many of those. There's no one that does all six things. No one does, hey, I'm gonna work with you on your mindset and your training and your nutrition and your recovery and getting you a better teammate, and then ask you the questions that makes you go and learn more things about your sport. So if no one else has that, then my approach is unique, and that gives me a competitive advantage structurally as a coach or as a business. Other people say, well, I'm going to this guy for cold therapy and hot therapy. I'm going to this guy for my nutrition, and I need to learn how to do some better juicing to have some better vitamins and micros or macros. And I'm like, so you have all these specialists, and that's true. You have, it takes a village, but no one's like the general manager writing a ship on all those areas. So that's where I would come in, and I would work with a basketball coach like you and say, hey man, are you asking your athletes these things? And you're like, no, because some coaches are, and if you're at Ohio State with thousands of people and resources, they're doing a lot of these things. But the D3 level or the high school level or NAIA or even D2, a lot of them are not. And I'm like, well, here you go. I can make an impact. I can help this team win. I was then on this team. I wasn't on a team when I was younger. So if I help Connor and Appalachian State wins, and then my whole downstairs is painted yellow or gold because I'm on that team. So yeah, that where I'm unique is that I take that holistic approach because no one else does, and I can win that way.
Mm. That's so interesting too, because by not niching down, right, by not picking one specific thing, you actually were able to find your own niche.
Yes, yes. So yeah, that is it. Yeah, because there's plenty of people who can get. There's 100 different Parisi speed schools. There's plenty of people
Mm-hmm.
that can get you fast. There's when there's 5-through-1 or periodization or conjugate to get strong. Okay, it's AP, so that's what those guys can do. But no one asks you those other questions.
Mm. And so I always like to hear the success stories. Like, what's one of your biggest wins that you've had since starting the business? And I know there's a lot, so it's tough to ask for one specific one, but are there any that stick out to you?
There's a lot of them like with the moms that are doing 8 pull-ups, right? There's soccer moms that are doing that's pretty neat. And there's people that lose 50, 70, 100 pounds. That's super neat, right? The kid that said, hey dad, I want to be an athlete one day, like he plays D1 football.
Wow,
So
that's awesome.
that's pretty cool. He came out in COVID when you couldn't visit schools. He ended up being a walk-on. They cut all the scholarships. Everybody else got a sixth year. He didn't get that, and then he earned a scholarship. So he learned enough things that he can be resilient and fight through. Because people aren't walk-ons aren't making it anymore. They just entered the portal and moved down. Right?
Mm-hmm.
He stayed in and still won. So there's that. So that's one of the three. Number two is we have a special forces guy that came out of my gym that went in the Army, and he's now a legit Army Ranger, travels and overseas and does things, right? That's pretty cool, right? It's like being a D1 athlete. That's so rare. The third one is I had this one couple, mom and dad, right? They love national parks like we do, and they went to Olympic like we did out there in Washington State. And they're at Lake Crescent, and it's this beautiful lake, typically very still, has these mountains around the side a little bit, not that big but decent size. And they're out there and they're cold. It's in the fall, so it's like October, November, so it's cold. And they're out there by themselves on this canoe or kayak, one of the two. I think canoe. And for some reason, this storm came in, and the wind is coming right at them. So every time the wind is coming at them constantly, it comes right through the saddle between these two mountains. The wind's coming right through at that lake. It actually
Mm.
creates these waves. And you got to have your canoe pointed right at the wave. Otherwise, if you're turning a little bit and the wave comes right at you, it's going to flip the canoe and you're going to end up in the water. And it's like 45, 50-degree water, right? And they even told, hey, don't try swimming. You're going to get hypothermia. You need to just sit there. So the waves are coming at them. It's relentless. And they keep turning the canoe straight at the wave, and they're getting through, right? Well, one time they don't turn it quick enough and they get dumped out. They turn the canoe back over to get back in, but here comes another wave. They get dumped again, and the canoe's upside down. They can't turn the canoe over. They're
Mm.
stuck. They're stuck there. They can't really swim for it either. They're not dressed for swim. They're not going to strip down. So luckily, the wife had her cell phone in a waterproof case, and they had their life jackets on, right? But they're in this waterproof case. So she calls 911, which then gets them to the overall park, which then moves them to a ranger, which moves them to another ranger, which is near the lake. And the ranger comes out and they hold their paddles, and the ranger with the binoculars can see them and gets in a motorized boat, goes out and saves their life. They're in that cold water like 45, 50 minutes, like treading
Oh,
water. And since we were so in shape from training with you guys for so many years doing functional fitness and stuff, we were able to handle the work, and we've done so many Murph events that we were able to just keep going. Since we had that as the reference points, the physical work and the mental work, we knew to just keep going until this ranger came and saved our life.
wow.
And I'm like, that's one of the best stories I've ever heard.
That's a huge win. I mean, oh my goodness. It's a life-saving win right
It's
there.
a life saving
Seriously.
win, right? So I'm like, thrilled,
Yeah, yeah.
thrilled,
I'd be
thrilled,
stoked too.
thrilled, right? Yeah.
I mean, if I had a business, I'd be putting them out there like, hey, Jim can save your life. That's incredible. Wow. But I mean, but seriously, the wins are what keep you going. And that's what's the most exciting piece for me. So
For
I
sure.
always like to hear about those. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, seriously, I've had a fantastic time with you on. I really appreciate you and your time. If somebody wanted to buy your book or look into Athlete Builder a little bit more, what would be the best way to do that?
Sure. We're on all the social media, which is kind of silly, but we have to do those kind of things. So Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, whatever. Just Athlete Builder. And then the podcast, same deal. Athlete Builder, it's a black and white anvil. You go to athlete-builder.com. You can get books from there. I have a digital course if you're interested in that. The summit that we're hosting June 7th. I got a lot of people way smarter than I am they travel the country and they speak, and they're paid tens of thousands of dollars, and they're coming here just to be nice. They're coming to our summit to present on a whole bunch of things. You get continuing education with the NSCA. So that's coming up. Or just email me, info@athlete-builder.com. Send me questions and I will answer them as best I can. And that's how you can get a hold of me.
That's awesome. NSCA CEU approved. That's a big deal.
It is, yeah. I'm pretty happy about it.
I mean, oh, that's awesome. Congratulations. That's a difference maker for a lot of summits.
It is, and it's one of the reasons why we wanted to do it. So it's like, hey, we're having homemade barbecue, and you're getting continuing education credits. You can lift with these coaches. Like it's all practical too in the middle and the end. And there's free beer at the end too. So come hang out.
It doesn't get better than that, I don't believe. Awesome. Well, Jim, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Connor, man. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on.
Of course.